Welcome to another episode of Chasing the Wind. I am Pastor Mark. Thanks for joining me. While I'm at it, I just want to say thanks for tuning in, looking at these videos, sharing these videos. Please keep doing that if you would, not just mine, but other videos that maybe speak to you, because someone maybe needs to hear it. So, anyway, I want to talk to you today about cutting back, aka pruning. So, my wife and roses, I love growing roses, but roses can be very hard to grow. Black spot, yellow leaf, all sorts of fun aphids, all sorts of fun things. Sometimes they're more trouble than they're worth, in my humble opinion. But anyway, my wife and I were somewhere and we found a little miniature rose. And it looked really good, and I thought, okay, I'll give it one more shot. I got it, and it was doing beautiful. It was doing beautiful. I'm telling you. And it was out on our back deck, sitting on a table. It was in a pot, and we have these wonderful things. Maybe you have them where you're at. They're called Japanese beetles. And they are a nuisance. They are dreadful. I spend 2 months hunting these things down. I have the bags. I have spray. I go pick them off by my hand and throw them in the bag. And they're just a dreadful thing. Dreadful thing, I say. And anyway, these things, I went out one day and they were on my miniature rose. I'm like, I finally have a miniature rose growing, and here comes these dreadful Japanese beetles. Well, got them off that day, and I decided, okay, I'm taking my rose bush in till they're done. And so I took it into the house. Alas, there's my word, alas. It was looking pretty peaked. And so I decided the best thing to do is I was picking leaves off that were skeletalized because the Japanese beetles ate all the meat off and all they left was the little vein things, And I decided, you know what? I'm just going to cut this thing back and start over. And of course, that just led me into thinking about our life. Sometimes God prunes. Okay, I deadhead my flowers that we have at the house so that they'll bloom more. Okay, that's why you do that. You deadhead them so they'll bloom more and get more blooms. But sometimes the pruning process means cutting things back all the way, kind of to the ground. Folks, sometimes we need to start over. Yeah, you ever had that? Sometimes it's in relation. Why don't we start over? Okay, you apologize. You both apologize. You explain. You talk it through like adults should. We often don't, especially Christian adults should be able to do this. And sometimes you just got to say, you know what? There's a lot of damage here. Let's just cut it back. Throw it in the fire, put it in the recycle bin, whatever you need to do. And let's start over. Let's start fresh. It's kind of the same thing with tearing down your old barns and building new ones. Sometimes you just can't rebuild on the frame that's there. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes for restoration to happen, there does have to be sometimes a total destruction, it seems. But yet there's also times that you just need to cut things back so they can get a fresh start. And so Wind Chasers, this is a little short video today, but I just want you to ponder that. There's some areas in your life that God says, boy, there's some real damage here and it's not going to recover. And so why don't we just cut it back and start over again? We do that in the with like different plants around our yard. We take down old stems from dried up stems from our daylilies. And, you watch things, and we have New England asters that'll be blooming here pretty soon, and they're beautiful. But, when they're done blooming, I got to cut them down so that then next year they come back all fresh. And so sometimes, folks, we just need to cut things back. I'm looking at those sunflowers behind me, and I don't know that you've ever raised sunflowers, but you try pulling up sunflower roots, you're just better off lobbing that baby off, cutting it off at the bottom, and letting those things decompose over the winter and become part of the ground. And next year's to fertilize the ground a little bit. Sometimes you got to cut things back. And sometimes God looks and says, why don't we just cut this back and start over again? And that's okay. It's okay. Sometimes that destruction is not the Japanese beetle. It's not some external force. Sometimes it's us. And sometimes choices we made and whatnot. And God says, let's start over. Let's start over. I'm old school. My dad ran alongside us when we were learning to ride a bike. He didn't give us training wheels. He ran alongside us until we could figure, we learned how to ride a bike. Sometimes we just have to, and then we'd fall. We'd fall. And he'd pick us up, put us back on, let's try it again. Sometimes we have to cut things back. We have to let God prune us back. Sometimes we have to fall and we have to say, this isn't working. This isn't working. And so let's figure out a way that does work. So Wind Chasers, I'm going to leave it right there. Just sometimes you need to cut back, and sometimes God will do the cutting back, and let him do it. It's not all bad. So till next time, I'm Pastor Mark. Grace and peace.